Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Year 3 Legends Fantasy Football League. We have a lot going on this year. We got a couple new faces. So we're going to welcome in Drew, Gio, and Jerry to the league this year. Welcome, guys, and I appreciate you joining. I'm looking forward to facing y'all and getting to experience the fantasy football life with y'all. Going to be a fun year, I think. Got some pretty good matchups starting off right off the bat. If people don't know, me and Sarah kind of have this ongoing fantasy football beef where we kind of be sniping each other. So, I would consider Sarah one of my rivals, but I mean we got Mirza and Adam. That's a pretty good matchup. We got the fucking brothers going against each other this week. There's a lot of good matchups to go over. Lots of good teams too. A lot of people drafted pretty well. Pretty excited about that. So let's start it off with my matchup. As per usual, we always go with the first matchup, the automatic winning matchup. So don't even bother. Don't even watch if you don't even, if you think you're gonna win, because it's not happening. All right, so we're gonna start off with the QB matchup. We got Baker versus Patrick Mahomes. Um, so Baker's projected about the same as Mahomes. That's fucking hogwash. All right, Baker for 50. All right. Taylor versus Kyron. Once again, Sarah is backing up Skyron Williams, her special player, her definitely special player. And going against Jonathan Taylor, I think that's about a pretty good even matchup. Let's see if Jonathan Taylor can continue on a tear here. This is my first time owning Jonathan Taylor in a fantasy league, so I'm kind of hoping to pay his off. We're back with Kenneth Walker, though. Kenneth Walker's my guy. Swift and Walker should be a wash. They should both fucking suck ass. Jefferson versus CeeDee Lamb. That's just some elite wide receiver game right there. Jefferson. Both will probably score about like 20-ish points in the. Justin Jefferson has had pretty hard shadow coverage when playing against the Bears, but and normally he just scores his points regardless. And I'm deciding to play Mooney this week. Devontae Adams. Stafford comes out looking healthy, which I've read reports that he's okay. Could be good for Adams for the rest of the year. Mooney has been kind of dealing with an injury, so I'm a little worried about that. Might not play him. We'll see. Don't want to give away who I might play in that receiver slot. You know what I mean? Tight ends, I'm getting destroyed. Ferguson's great, solid 5 points a week, but Kittle's a pretty big beast. He could drop you a 30 or 40 point night. Wilson versus Pollard. I just like Garrett Wilson. I think he's a good receiver. Like the way he runs routes. I think he's fast. Got a good head on his shoulders. He understands the game. I think he's got a bright future, but maybe not as a Jet. Debo, Eckler. This is fun because they're on the same team. They're both important pieces to the team. That should be an exciting game to watch. Fields versus Goff. I think Jared Goff is obviously the better through the air quarterback, and then Fields is he can run the ball, so they'll probably score you about 20 points. Obviously, I think I'm gonna creep away with the win here. I think who's gonna really make it or break it for me is gonna be Baker Mayfield. All right, we got Adam versus Mirza. So this is a really good matchup. They're projected pretty close to each other, about a 50-50. I always give like 5 plus or minus 5% stupid bots. They don't really do a really good job of doing these predictions. Obviously, it's impossible. Does a decent job most weeks. Hurts versus Knicks. I mean, Jalen Hurts is they're just going to continue to just use this man, bulldoze through the line. I think that's the obvious like QB to take in this position. I thought that was a solid pick this year. Bo Nix has got the upside of explosiveness though, so I don't know. Like second year, we'll see what's going on. Had some pretty exciting moments last year. Let's see if it continues. James Cook versus Bijan. Well, I mean, I think everybody knows that. I think James Cook is a fucking weenie of a running back. If it wasn't for Josh Allen in that line, like he might not even be a running back one for any other team. I don't honestly, I can't confidently say that. Whereas Bijan doesn't have a line at all, and still produces. Bijan would be probably the undisputed number one pick for this season if he had a team like the Bills. But he doesn't, so but still Bijan by a mile. Hubbard versus Henderson. This Henderson guy is supposed to be pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited to watch him work, but Hubbard's kind of guaranteed his workload, right? So let's give Hubbard the matchup at least for now. We need some more information. Henderson's a good pick though, exciting pick. Collins versus London. I honestly like. I said this last year, and I'm gonna say it again this year. I think London is solid. I just think Mooney is gonna just since London is gonna get shadow coverage for most games. Like Mooney will be the fantasy option, like better option week by week. I think last year London had a pretty good year, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe he proves me wrong again. Nico Collins is good though. He's a fucking baller. BTJ, Brian Thomas. I mean, they've added more weapons to his team, so that's a little bit of a concern for him. But I don't know if it's going to be that big of a concern. The more people there are to throw to that are actual threats, the more opens up the field for him. So there's a win loss there, right? Like he may not get as many targets, but at the same time, like he's such an explosive player that those explosive plays, like I have a higher chance of succeeding. Chris Olave, I mean, I just honestly, I wanted nothing to do with the Saints this year. That team is a dumpster. But I say that every once in a while, and that dumpster team ends up being good. Like last year, I called the Vikings a dumpster fire, and they went crazy. Andrews versus Ingram. My man picked up my boy Mandrews. If he has a bounce back here, he probably will. Ingram's a solid tight end as well. They probably both give him about 10 points, double digit points. Williams versus Johnson. I'll take Williams. He's just a solid receiver for that team. He does the deep ball work. He even does slants now. Like they're mixing it up with him, so he's not just a deep ball threat, but he's running different routes now. They're handing him the ball. They're just trying to get him involved, and let's see if that holds true though, because obviously there's a different coordinator. There's the risk of that, and let's see what the scheme looks like. Are they going to hand him off the ball? Do they want to keep him safe? You know the drill. Pickens versus Mason. I think Mason halfway through the year will probably be one of the best picks of the season. I don't think I took enough Mason. Like Aaron Jones is fairly old. If he loses his role due to injury or he's just not performing well due to age, Mason might step in and really have pretty big workload here. I like that, but I'll take Pickens for now. Obviously, just I didn't even want to talk about Prescott. JJ McCarthy, good pick. Buffalo versus Denver. Both have really good defenses, but Denver's defense is just so good. I've been talking up Patrick Surtain and like this whole entire crew that has just really put it together. And if they have improved from last year, the team is about to be disgusting. Who am I predicting to win? I think I'm going to give this week to Mirza just because Adam has some investments in some of these players. I think some of these players will pay dividends mid-year. I do think he has that upside. But this week I would have to give it to Mirza. So we got Alex versus Infi. Show Bobs. Hell yeah. This is a fun matchup, I think Lamar Jackson versus Herbert, that huge number discrepancy is pretty accurate. Lamar Jackson is a beast, Adam last year won the chip. Your boy. He's so good. He's so fun to watch. I picked Jaden Daniels because I don't know. I don't know. Like in a couple of leagues, I've had the opportunity to pick Lamar or Jaden Daniels, but I've picked Jaden Daniels every time, and it's just a hunch. I think like they're gonna both have great seasons, but Jaden Daniels might just have like one of those one fantasy seasons. Kamara versus Jacobs. Kamara is. I mean, I was saying a bit ago, I don't really want to touch any Saints players. But Kamara is probably gonna get a big bulk of the work as long as he stays healthy. His name with Jacobs is if he stays healthy. You both got some good RB1s. Yeah, Harvey versus Connor. Harvey is probably a good investment for like the next couple of weeks. We'll see what Sean Payton's offense looks like. Let's see if Harvey gets a good role, and if he does, then it's really good. But for now, I think Okama Game Sphere kind of takes that. He's just James Conner is such a great running back. You know, he's always putting in the dirty work. He's always getting the yardage. Got Jamar Chase versus Puka Nkuku. Give me Jamar Chase. I love Puka Nkuku. I don't doubt it, but he's got to compete with Devontae Adams now. Jamar Chase is just. He's got Joe Burrow, who's he's going to be slinging dick out there. So is Stafford. Both got high producing QBs. I really shouldn't factor that in too much. But Joe Burrow's healthy this year. That is a factor. McLaurin versus Flowers. I mean, I like McLaurin a lot. I think Scary Terry pretty good, but Zay Flowers obviously like he's that explosive guy. He's that explosive guy on the team, so good. Good pick. Laporta versus Kelsey. Like I said, with Detroit, these Detroit players, we gotta really watch out for the change in coordinator. We gotta watch the scheme and like who actually is gonna take up that role and produce. And you know what you're gonna get out of Kelsey, right? Like Kelsey's probably the more stable pick for the season. Can't argue with that. He had a pretty well, what would be a really good year for most tight ends was a really poor year for Travis Kelsey. So, hopefully he doesn't continue to digress. I think he has a bounce back season. Good pick. Tracy versus Kraft. I'm not really a big on either of these guys. So I might just kind of skip back that. Tracy's got a role here, but I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what he does. Let's see what the workload looks like. That's another one where like I don't know. He had a really good like stint at the end of the last year, but we'll see. Parcel's a good pick though. Golden's also a good pick. I think Parcell is probably going to run that receiver room, and Golden has the upside for mid-season. I don't know. I would take Parcell right now, but Golden, like, he's shown some pretty insane bright spots. Lawrence versus Stafford. Stafford, been dealing with that injury stuff. So, I mean, they say he's healthy, but they said that last year, and he was in pain the whole time. So we'll see. I like Trevor Lawrence, though. I think he's got a good year ahead of him. Houston versus Philly. Philly's the better defense. Houston, solid defense. Stafford and them might score a good amount, so I wouldn't really trust it. I'm probably gonna give the matchup win to. Sorry, Infi. I just gotta choose Alex. It is what it is. And now the matchup of the week. Let's get it started. This has got to be the matchup of the week, right? It's a 50-50 projection. They're brothers, so it's gonna get freaking just absolutely toxic in the Dominguez household this weekend. And I wish I could be there. We got Love versus Allen. He had to play Love, like he invested in the Love, you know what you're getting out of your boy Love. And plus, it's a divisional matchup. Should probably be a high scoring game. It's a good pick. Allen is just Josh Allen. There's not much more you can say. Dude can run the ball, throw the ball, fuck the ball. He can do anything to that ball, and I'll watch it, and it'll amaze me. He's a solid dude. Henry versus Genty. Both, Genty's the obvious like rookie that people believe is going to be huge, but You know that it's the same story every year. We hype up so many players, and it's really hard to live up to those expectations. I do think Genty is going to be a solid player. I do hope he turns into the player that they're projecting him to be, because he reminds me a lot of just like so many great skilled players who played the running back position. And he runs a lot like a mixture of Alvin Kamara and old boy sweetness, and like it is fun to watch. So hopefully that translates to the league. But Derrick Henry is as a runner is, I don't know, been stable for so many years, man. He's just a workhorse, and then the definition of a workhorse. Age doesn't seem to have slowed him down. He seems to be getting faster still, gaining muscle, and I don't know. He's not human, I don't think. McCaffrey versus Chan, and obviously McCaffrey is as good as it gets. If McCaffrey stays healthy and does what he's done, even half of what he's done in fantasy the previous years, that is a great pick at that value, and can't blame him. CMC, solid pick. A Chan, just probably one of the fastest people in the league, so there's just huge upside with that offense and how fast he is. Harrison versus Njigba. I think Harrison's going to. I just believe in the Marvin Harrison projection. I like him a lot. I think that was a good pick. I think it's a very hated on pick for some reason that early, but Malik Neighbors is going around like in like the first like 7 picks. I don't understand why. Like, I understand like Harrison had a pretty rough year last year, but I do think like he still has the power to be a top like 12 receiver. And Jigba, I like his route running. Let's just say that like nobody runs as clean of a route as Jackson Smith and Jigba. That dude can work. DJ Moore versus Evans. Evans is Mr. Consistent. You kind of just know that he's going to probably hit that 1,000 yard marker each year. People every year will be like, the year he's not going to do it. It's the year he's not going to do it. And he just continues to do it. So, what a fucking legend. DJ Moore, though, Caleb Williams, you got the Ben Johnson, moving and grooving. You know what I'm saying? DJ Moore could be like one of those big picks as well. I think Eddie's got a really underrated team. I think these stupid bots who are power ranking, obviously they're just ranking where players are ranked right now. But if you have any foresight and have any fucking balls to gamble, and believe in who you believe in, then it'll pay dividends. We got Ertz versus Loveland. I mean, Ertz will, Jaden Daniels, you know what I'm saying? A lot of his throws are not going to be too far. And if it's not working, he's going to run or like dump it to his tight end. So the Ertz is a good pick. Loveland is supposed to get a lot of work. I mean, the Ben Johnson offenses, as we've seen, just they always get a lot of tight end work here. So I like Loveland. I didn't like the pick at first, but as time went on and as I watched film and as I seen him work, I've really learned to like the dude. Pacheco versus Schmitty. I like Schmitty. I think he's the best receiver on the Eagles, and I like AJ Brown too. But I still think Smith is like genuinely the better pure receiver. I think AJ Brown has been gifted a body that most people wish they could achieve, but Schmitty wasn't granted that. He just works with what he's got, and I think pound for pound, that's my guy. Judy versus Shaheed. This one's funny because I like Shaheed. I think he's really fast, good deep ball threat, but I don't know who's throwing him the ball. I'm a little worried about that. Whereas Judy, he's kind of getting into the motion of like, who the fuck cares? Who cares who's throwing me the ball? I'm gonna get it. Like I'm gonna find my ways to get open. So he's a bit of a scrappy guy. I like that. Who will turn the ball over? That's a funny pick, dude. I don't know. When you pick Tua, that one cracked me up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. Just because it's Tua. There ain't nothing else to it. He's just a fucking. We've just been memeing on him for a couple years. I just love it. Sammy Darnold, he's kind of in his prove it year again, right? Kind of unfortunate. Got traded after proving he did a good job, but unfortunately, when it mattered the most, he kind of fell short. But it doesn't matter. This is fantasy football. We're not gonna watch him and get fantasy points in the playoffs. It's regular season, so it's a good pick. Pittsburgh versus Baltimore. I think Baltimore's got a great defense. Obviously, they have to play against Buffalo, so it's projected pretty low, whereas Pittsburgh gets to go against the Jets. So you're guaranteed at least 1 or 2 Fields fumbles. And that's coming from a Fields fan who owns Fields, so you know it's probably true. Who do I think is going to win? I got to go with Eddie. You know, GLB coming at me for no reason, and he owes me at least 10%, you know. And if he wins, he owes me 10% of that win. And if he loses, then I'll take 10% of that loss, you know what I mean? Because it's got to go both ways. And I'll own up to that because I'm voting for Eddie here. All right, we got Jerry versus our boy Costco hot dogs, Brett. We got Jerry versus Brett. That's fucking. I can't believe you changed your name to Costco hot dogs. What a legend. All right, we got Kyler Murray versus Jaden Daniels. I wish I had Jaden Daniels. I'll get over it soon though. But probably not. I'll probably bring it up all year. That's okay. That's okay. But pretty good matchup here. I mean, Jerry, the AI projected Jerry's team pretty high in the power rankings to start off the year. Him and Mirza drafted really well. The Mirzas, I should say, they drafted pretty well. Kyler versus Jaden. Obviously, Kyler has that running upside that we all know and love, but so does Jaden, and he also can throw the ball and he can see over the line, so that's a bonus, in my opinion. But Kyler has Marvin Harrison Jr. to throw at, and I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have honestly a good second year. I really hope so. I'm rooting for the guy. Gibbs versus Breece Hall. Jahmyr Gibbs, baby. Gibby. Gotta ride that man all the way to the playoffs. Breece Hall's obviously been talked about like in kind of the same respect last year, but we all watched how last year played out, and a couple running backs were getting workload, and it just wasn't looking good for the Jets. And obviously, like there's the same fear of this year. So as of right now, like the obvious answer is Gibbs, but Breece Hall has the potential to be one of those guys. I think he could be like a league winner for some people, considering he wasn't going like super crazy high this year. But I do like Gibbs more. Jones versus Montgomery. I would say Montgomery just has the touchdown upside, and I think that's the obvious answer. But Jones is obviously like in past has had pretty explosive games and could have a pretty big one. He also is notorious for tearing up the Chicago Bears, and look at who he gets to play against week 1. So I have to go with Jones, even though I don't want to say that. It's just fact. He's ran all over us year after year, except for when he got hurt. But even before he got hurt, he was still tearing it up. Monra versus Malik Neighbors. I like Neighbors a little bit more, but that's because I just kind of don't like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I just can't fucking stand the dude's attitude towards the Bears. So it makes me hate him, and it makes me not want to pick him, even though I know he's good. I know he's a good receiver. That's just bias coming out. With no bias, he's as solid as a rock. He understands the game well. He's one of those receivers, kind of like Cooper Kupp, that really understand the game at a deeper level, and it really gives him the edge running the route. But whereas Malik Neighbors is just a pure fucking animal who just got that dog in him. You know what I mean? Like some people just got that dog in them. That's Malik Neighbors. McConkey versus Hill. Hill's this year is also like one of those people that, you know, if they just perform at any level that they performed before, well, you know, it could win you the league, because Tyreek Hill at that cheap is a really good pick, but it has to turn out, otherwise he could also ruin your team like the way he did last year. But thankfully it's not a first round pick, and it wasn't as wasted as last year, so it wouldn't be I guess not as devastating as last year. But I do like McConkey nonetheless. I think he's a solid white boy. He got that drip in him, you know what I mean? He's a little swaggy with it. He's scruffy, and he reminds me a lot of an actually talented Hunter Renfrow. And that's terrible to say, because Hunter Renfrow can run a route better than most people in the league, but he just doesn't have the athleticism. Whereas McConkey does. He's a pretty athletic dude. Kyle Pitts versus McBride. I think we all know, McBride's is just a little better of a tight end. I think everybody year after year with Kyle Pitts just tells the same tale. Oh, this is his year, but I can't even say that for Jerry because this league's weird. People know that there are people who get hungry for tight ends mid-year, and they've kind of implemented that into their draft strategy. And as you can tell, like sometimes it pays off, and some people like myself as well. They really have to punt the tight end section, and that's fine. But Kyle Pitts is a good value pick. If he does perform as well as he's projected at the start, then he could also be one of those fucking guys. It's just such an exciting time at the beginning of the year. There's so many unknown variables and like unknown facts, and as the year plays out, you start to like see what it actually looks like, and it's great. Xavier Worthy versus Metcalf. I think people know that I am not a big fan of Metcalf. I think he's freakishly athletic, but I think he's one of the worst receivers in the league, bar none. I think he's more athletic than he is an actual football player, and that to me is a problem because I don't think he understands really all that well how to play the game, and it comes kind of shitty to say. But Worthy is in a good offense. He's just got a great all around team around him, and I think the team wants him to succeed. They want to see him succeed. You saw that last year, where like even as a rookie, they were really trying to get him involved. This guy's speed is phenomenal, so you have to get him the ball. There's no way you have somebody that fast and you don't try to incorporate them somehow. And I think this year, this man can figure out how to run a route. Then could be a top 20, top 15 receiver easily. And that includes with Rashee Rice coming back, because once he comes back, then it's gonna put the targets a little bit. But I think until then, like, a really solid as can be pick. Sutton, Benson. I just like Sutton. I think I've been sold on Sutton for like a little bit now. I used to laugh at him, but honestly, just a really solid guy. Like each week he comes and he balls out, and some weeks are a little quiet, but it's a good week for most players. It's just not like it wasn't an exciting time. He was just catching balls and he wasn't making anything fancy happen. He was just doing his job. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. Yeah, I don't know. Trey Benson is just one of those picks that I'm not really too excited about. I think there's a couple people on his bench that he might want to look into playing instead. But obviously, if there's something I don't know, then he knows something, or maybe he hasn't like completely set his lineup. Purdy versus Ward. I just like the Niners offense is a little bit more. The Titans team is still something I need to be sold on. I can't really go with the pick right now. I'm not really sold on it. There's a lot of unknown talent there, and could be a good young team to just like watch and have fun with. But I'm gonna go with the team that I know has done great and during the regular season in the past, so I'm just gonna go with Perdonius. I do like the Arizona plug-in. I think that was a good plug and play. And obviously the Saints are kind of fucking booty, so like it. I like that pick. Not the entirety of the Saints, just most of them. There are a couple players that could really throw a wrench in that defense's plan, but I don't really see that happening. Minnesota against Chicago. I mean, as a Bears fan, I have to say, like, Chicago's about to run all over the Vikings, but you play something else. And keep playing them. But for this one, I'm gonna go with Jerry. I think Jerry's team is solid as can be. I think they're in like the win now, win today type situation. I think there is a lot of investing here on Brett's team. It could definitely pay off. I can see the vision and where he was picking these players and why he was picking these players. I like some of these players, but like from today's standpoint, I gotta go with Jerry's team. It's solid as can be. And then we got Brandon versus Drew. So QB wise, I think Joe Burrow is a no brainer here. I mean, I don't mind Drake May. I think he's got talent. I just think Joe Burrow is talented or more talented. Got Saquon versus Dobbins, and then that one is obviously like Saquon's just more. I think is a little bit more talented than Dobbins. I think Dobbins is solid, but there's also like 4 running backs on that team, and I'm a little worried about the workload. Irving versus Scadaboo, and same thing with Scadaboo situation. You don't really know who's getting what, but with Bucky Irving, you know who's getting the ball. Bucky, yeah, Bucky, great pick. I mean, this guy has running backs for days, so his running backs better be good. McMillan was a good pick for where he was being taken. I think could be a solid piece to plug in here for the wide receiver role. AJ Brown, I was talking about earlier, where I said I think Smitty's the better receiver on that team, but AJ Brown is still AJ Brown. That's all I can say. I think he's a beast. I like Calvin Ridley a little bit more than T. Higgins this year, to be honest with you. I like T, but I like Calvin Ridley a little bit more, so it's a solid value pick right there too. The receivers were balling on a budget, and I respect that. Warren versus Bowers. I think Bowers is like the better version of Warren, but at the same time, Warren has the. Should I say the better team? I'm going to say the better team. I think he has the better team. But Bowers gets, since he's on the worst team, he's going to get a lot of the work. But they also added Genty, so I'm a little worried that they're not going to feed him the way they did last year. Brown versus Hawkinson. I think Chase Brown is, just what a great running back, I think there's a couple other people behind him that are hungry and, can be a good fill-in case things happen. But Chase Brown is electric. I think it's a good pick. Hampton versus Waddle. I mean, this week I'm gonna have to go with Waddle. I think Waddle, with Tua there, it's just I think he's the good obvious pick here. Hampton is, just we got to see it. I can't really pick and like believe in something I haven't seen yet. I also thought Quentin Johnson was gonna be their number 1 receiver, and look how that turned out. Daniel Jones versus Stroud. And I mean, obviously, I think without saying, I think we can all agree that Stroud's the better quarterback and will probably score more fantasy points most weeks. But, Daniel Jones can run the ball, and that is kind of his upside to fantasy, right? And you never know when Danny Dimes will bust out a fucking 80-yard buff fumble, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes he runs for 80 yards and just fumbles the ball, trips up. But, hey, that's 8 points. Washington versus the Niners. Those are just both good defenses, both good matchups. So I do think the Niners might have a little bit more of trouble because I do have to go against Cooper Kupp, and I continue to get berated on that. But I do think Cooper Kupp and like that Seattle offense will be a little bit better than like what people anticipate. And I have to give the win to Brandon. Drew's team is a little bit everywhere. Kind of, yeah. Once the auto draft came live, it was a little bit of a downturn for Drew's team. But I'm really hoping he can maybe make some trades happen, or just some things work out in his favor, and then this team can be revived. But he does have pieces that can be moved around for smaller, equal value pieces. But that's it for me, guys. I miss doing these videos. Excited to be doing them week by week. I hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to football this week. Let's go. Go Bears.